With that, welcome to another episode of Unleashing the Future of Work. I just realized that I've been muted, so I want to go ahead and intro the amazing guest and speaker that I'm going to have on our episode today, Anita Ledding. Anita Ledding is a strategic multilingual business leader with in-depth knowledge of the HCM ecosystem, human capital management, and an international speaker in HR and workplace technology. She formerly worked with NGA HR, which is the world's number one global HR and payroll firm, driving a culture of innovation based on values and diversity. And today, we're going to have her talk to us a little bit more about leadership in the future of work and how people should manage their career paths in this dynamic future. So with that said, I want to show love to everyone in the comments. Hey, Aya. Hey, Soren. Thank you so much, Isaac, for letting me know that I was muted this entire time. You are awesome, my friend. Now, with that said, let's bring on Anita. Anita.
Hey, Tim. Hi, everyone.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Can you hear us, Anita?
I can.
Awesome. So, Anita, I would love for you to share a bit of your story, right? How did you get into work that you do in the HR landscape and becoming this global leading figure around the future of work? So talk to us a little bit about your story, Anita.
So I joined Arinzo back at the time, 19 years ago. I was in IT. They were looking for an IT person, IT consultant, and I joined them not knowing a whole lot about HR and payroll. Over time, that changed. And the company grew, and with that growth came a number of really awesome opportunities for me, both at the national level at first, and then since around 2011, also at the regional level, and then at the global level, and then most recently on the executive team of the company. Yeah.
Wow. And then prior to that, what work were you doing? Were you familiar with HR?
Not at all. I had a background in technology. I was a Microsoft engineer, Microsoft solution engineer. So I did a lot of, I worked as a network architect, did a lot of, creating networks, managing servers, making sure that everyone had a working computer. So I started with basic hardware and cables, creating networks for companies. Not comparable at all to what we have now, right? 20 years ago, we didn't have Wi-Fi. So which is unimaginable if you think about it now. But yeah, so computers were connected to walls with cables, and the cables went to servers. That was how it worked.
And the work environment has changed so much since then, right? Everyone now has smartphones. We're all using Slack for asynchronous communication. In a world where you can probably start using VR to collaborate, and no longer do you have to commute. You can telecommute now, right?
Right.
Trend. I'm fascinated to get your thoughts on one big thing, and that's essentially, how do you see careers changing in this future? And in addition to careers, how do you see leadership changing in the future?
Yeah. I think when you look at careers, we have a very different view of careers today than we had 20 or 30 years ago.
That's true.
20 or 30 years ago, it was very normal that you join a company at, I would say, at the bottom, right? An internship or junior position, and then you work your way up. And there was the assumption that you would switch or make a step every 2 or 3 years. Today, that is quite different in the sense that you see people move between companies and do quite different things. And if you are, I'd say, 25 today, there's a good potential that you live to be 100. And so, as you know, I've interviewed you for the future of work, and I've done some research on the future of work. And the belief is that you will have 17 different jobs in 5 different industries, especially for people that grow up now and that are starting out in the workplace. So that whole notion of you make a step every 2 or 3 years in the same function, or you work 30 or 40 years at the same company, that will completely disappear, right? So people will be very flexible, move between companies. If you look at our company, we've had the first people that worked for us for 2 years, then went somewhere else, like in the public sector, and did a project there, and then called me and said, "Can I come back?" And yeah, of course. In the past, you would never do that. So it's a completely different world. It's much more project-based, and people are much more accepting of employees having different roles at different points in times and not going for the career ladder.
I love that, because I think one of the things I often tell people, look, the career ladder is dead, right? It's now more about career paths, right? How do you give employees the opportunity to choose, customize, and develop based on their own choice? So if someone is coming in and they're wanting to learn more about marketing, but they change their mind and they want to learn more about product management, how do you create an internal ecosystem within your workplace that allows them to pivot? And I would love to get your thoughts on this, right? Because you had a really dynamic career within NGA.
I did.
Right, formerly. How were you able to pivot so many different times to really grow your career the way you wanted to? And what are 3 practical things you encourage people to do the same?
Yeah. So I was very fortunate in that the company was growing. We were going in a different direction. We were a company that was 100% consulting back when I joined them. And over time, we moved, as the whole industry has moved, to a company that had many more recurring clients. So we started to provide services and outsourcing for clients, so a lot more recurring jobs. And that also meant that we created a new business line, new business units, and over time, I was given the opportunity to work first in consulting, then in outsourcing, and then into, I would say, more managerial roles, mostly in the go-to-market part of the organization. I would say, a part that is just because you work hard and you deliver results, because there is no career without delivering. It's very simple. The other thing is that you need to create a network in the company that will help you keep informed of what is going on.
Yeah.
And when something changes, I would encourage people to step up and say, "Hey, I heard about this initiative. What can I do to help? Because I think it's a good initiative. I have some ideas. Who do I talk to, and who could offer me a job, or how do I participate in this project?" It's keeping your eyes open for wider possibilities than just what is your day job. Although focusing on the day job, because remember, I also said you have to deliver results. And then at certain points in time, I have taken a step back and thought about, okay, what's next for me? And what would I like to do? Is that available to me? Can I talk to someone? And so that is also what I mean with take the initiative. It's not always a straight line. For me, it also wasn't always a straight line. But at a certain point in time, all these different all these different jobs that I had done and all the different experiences that I had allowed me to step up and get a place on the executive team. So in hindsight, it wasn't a straight career ladder. It wasn't a straight line, but it got me where I wanted to go.
I love that. And you mentioned this very important aspect that I think people sometimes don't realize when it comes to working in a corporation. It's building a network that extends beyond
Yep.
you, right?
Right. Yeah, because a network allows you, first of all, it's people that you work with that are outside your comfort zone, that you can learn something from, right? But it also gets your name out there because if someone's worked with you and they think that you did a good job, then when they hear someone else needing those same skills or those same capabilities, very often they will say, hey, give that person a call because we had them in our team and they did a fantastic job. So if you need someone to deliver this for you, give them a call.
Mm, mm.
That is also how when I have projects, that is how I staff them. I know that in a company of, close to 5,000 people, I don't know everyone. But once you start asking your colleagues, hey, I have this job, and do you know someone who could be a star performer? Then typically they know someone who knows someone. So yeah,
Yeah.
you need to build your network, and very important, if you work for a company that have different business lines, create a network that involves people outside of your business line or outside of your country or whatever entity you work in, because that increases your exposure and therefore you have more opportunities.
I love that. I absolutely love that, Anita. And to really quickly chime in on what our lovely audience is saying, Isaac is saying, hi, Anita and Tim. This is one of the best podcasts to listen to during my lunch break. Shout out to you, Isaac. Thank you for tuning in as one of our
Thank you, Isaac.
community members. Q Harrison, a good friend of mine, is saying this is a baller podcast. Appreciate you guys. And Marciano Loen is saying, is there a way to rewatch this from start to finish? He's that excited to rewatch this later on.
Good.
And Isaac actually already has some questions that we can actually surface to you, Anita, and get your thoughts on. Isaac is asking, what percentage of your jobs has come as a function of internal relationships or external relationships? Talk to me, Anita.
Okay. So my role at NGA was strategy and alliances. And as alliances implies, that was building networks with vendors that we work with or potential new vendors that could be added to our portfolio.
Mm.
Especially in the final years of my time at NGA, I would say I'd spend about between 50 and 75% of my week in calls and meetings with people that were not from NGA. But
Wow.
in the early years of my career, I have also, for instance, managed the outsourcing business of NGA. And then 80% of my time was spent on managing the teams that were providing the services to our clients, and probably 20% of the time I spent outside with the clients because we had salespeople and account managers who really managed the clients. So it was different in every role. The other thing that helped is I have been with NGA for 19 years. So I've seen a lot of people come, I've seen a lot of people go, and the past 10 years I've had roles in management. So people know me. People know who I am. People reach out to me. I know I have seen a lot of people come, so I know who they are. So the longer that you are with a company, the larger your network is, obviously.
This is true.
Yeah.
So what do you say about people who struggle to build internal networks within their companies? Because I think you do a really great job of doing two things: building an internal network within the former company you worked at, but you also built an external network. Do you think it's either or or should you be doing both? Talk to me about that,
I,
Anita.
th- I think you should be doing both.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is, as we just talked, your career is going to be, if it's 17 jobs in 5 different industries, chances are very likely that you won't spend 19 years in a company like I did.
Yeah.
It's much shorter, and therefore if you want to build your network, you have to also build an external network. Now, the other reason why I think building an external network is so interesting is because it gives you exposure to outside opinions. If you work in the same company for a very long time, you run the risk of thinking along the company lines instead of having fresh perspectives. So if you talk to people on a regular basis, people that are not in your company, then you also learn different things. You hear from people how they solve problems as opposed to how we would solve problems internally, because, we've been doing this for a very long time. So it always needs to be a mix of internal and external people. And I think it isn't difficult to build an external network, or an internal network works along the same principles, actually. But you need to be able to give something back, right? So I know a lot of people because I've been in the industry for a long time. I work in the HR ecosystem. But for instance, Tim, you and I met because I reached out to you with a question, right?
Yeah.
I invited you to the podcast. We'd never spoken to each other before. But that is how we met. We exchanged some notes over the internet, and that was it. And so it is much easier right now or today to get introduced to people and to meet external people than it was, let's say, 5-10 years ago. So if you reach out to people, there's always a possibility to get something back.
This is so true, and this is a follow-up question to the last question I asked you, because Isaac loved that answer. He was like, "This is facts. This is such a great response. It's important to do both." One of our community members and listeners right now, Saad, is saying, "How do you suggest we grow the network outside our teams, internally and externally? Is it a matter of always looking for those high-stakes projects, or seeking mentorship?" What are your thoughts on that, Anita?
I think it's both, but seeking mentorship is very important. We had a mentor program, or we have a mentor program at NGA. I have been one of the mentors. I had a couple of people that reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to be their mentor. And that is also a great idea to build your network, because especially internally, but you can also do it externally. Typically, if you approach people with a good reason why you think they should be your mentor, if they have some time available, I think most people that I know would say yes. Not going to be a mentorship where they talk to you every week, but if it's 45 minutes every month, it's very doable. And don't forget that mentors also learn something from having mentees, because you know what people are struggling with. And sometimes as a mentor, I heard from different mentees what they were struggling with, and it was the same thing. And that made me realize that we needed to change something at the corporate level, because apparently there was something that needed to be fixed. And then if you have an external mentor, I've had an executive coach for a while. That is someone who gives you a different perspective, who isn't in the company, and also be extremely helpful. So I think get a mentor. At first, it doesn't really matter if they're internal or external, but then also once you've done that, become a mentor, because that's very interesting as well.
I love that. And I think it's like reach one, teach one, right?
Right.
Speak it and then reciprocate it, whether within your company or outside of your company. That's lovely. Thank you so much, Anita, because people are loving that response. Yatunde, one of our lovely viewers, is saying this is fantastic information. Thank you so much, Anita. So people are loving your tidbits and tips. So Anita, now that we've really kind of established the fact that one, leadership is changing in the workplace, and more importantly, people have to take more initiative in building networks and seeking high impact projects within their organizations because the workplace is becoming more project oriented. I want to ask you, Anita, can you give me an example of some of the organizations or even leaders you believe are creating this type of workplace environment?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna name any names. That would not be prudent. But I think what you see companies understand more and more that in the past we used to have a very hard line between work and life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you had work-life balance, and you need to make sure that you have enough life and that you're also present at work. But the two things didn't connect.
Mm.
With all the technology that is available today, and with the Wi-Fi that we now have, we can work anywhere at any time. So you see that companies that understand that people have a personal life,
Mm.
that are accepting of the fact that sometimes it's better for a person to work from home,
Mm.
as opposed to demanding that everyone is in the office from 9 to 5, for instance, are the companies that are more attractive to modern workers. And so the same goes for companies that make sure that their people have, gonna say, the latest and greatest in technology. If you can, if you have the tools that you need to get the work done, that also makes a very attractive company to people. And then one of the things that we found with the future of work research that we did was that it is also very different what people want. People, many people are looking for a job that fits their life at this point in time.
Yeah.
In 2 or 3 years, their personal lives can be very different. Think, for instance, about a young family with some kids in kindergarten. They need daycare, or they need to make sure that one of the parents is at home when the kids are not in school. Once your kids get into elementary school, they are in school a longer period of time, right? And so your requirements to stay at home change. So we saw a lot of that come back, in the answers of this future of work study, where people said it needs to be flexible. Could be that I want to work more from home now, but then in 2 years, when my kids go to school, I'm perfectly happy to come into the office every day, or to do more travel, or to do something completely different. And that was an answer that we had not seen before. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense too, right? For example, for me right now, with the work that my team and I are doing within Guide, we're building a company, we're a distributed team, but we each have members on our founding team who work in different locations and are different points in life. For example, one of my co-founders, Mike, he has a family of 4, and he's also a full-time teacher at the same time building a company.
Wow.
Building a venture. So he has to really try to find balance. But at this time, him and his family have decided that they want to explore building a company, allow him to do this full time. So he has to be really mindful of this point in his life and how he creates time, whether it be for a side project or to pursue his passions. So, I can, through his story, I can really relate with what you're saying, Anita, because I think every employee is going to go through a point in life. Maybe you're going to want to be a freelancer, or you're going to want to work full time only, or you're maybe going to even want to do both, right? At the same time, to better provide for your family.
Right. Or you want to, like I did, decide that you want to go on sabbatical for a couple of months. So
like you.
There will be all kinds of different approaches to work, and especially if your work life is going to be more towards 50 years than it is 30 or 40 years, you need to think about it in a different way, in the sense that there will be some years where you maybe want to take a time out to recharge and regroup, or maybe you want to go back to school to learn something different. And that means that you take a year off to do that. You want to start a family, maybe you need to care for your parents or for someone who is ill. So there's a lot of variations, and you see more and more companies be willing to adjust the 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, because those people have or provide them with certain unique skills. They don't want to lose those workers, so they are more accommodating than they were probably before. And I have to say that in many cases, work also allows you to be more accommodating, right? If you can cut work up in projects, and you can agree with someone, okay, you do this part of the project and it requires that you work for me, let's say 5 or 10 hours a week. It's a lot different than when you want someone to be in the office 9 to 5, 40 hours a week.
I love that. I love that, Anita. And if you are loving this, please make sure you're leaving comments or questions if you have any. Thank you so much to Tunde, Marciano, Isaac, Saad, Q, Olubi, all of you for tuning in, chiming in, and sharing all of these amazing tips. If you have any questions, please make sure you leave it in the comments. So, Anita, I want to ask you, now that you're on your sabbatical with NGA HR, what's next? What are you going to be doing in the world? Are you going to continue speaking? And where can our lovely community find you next? And also, if you're loving this episode with Anita, please make sure you share this with your network. I'm sure there's someone who needs this information and needs the value that we're sharing on this episode of the Unleashing the Future of Work. But with that said, Anita, what's next, right? Are you going to continue speaking?
If people invite me, yes, I will come and speak, especially on the futures of work, as you know. But mostly, I'm going to use my sabbatical to think about what I'm going to do next. So I have no plans. I have no fixed picture in my mind of what I'm going to be doing after the summer. As you know, my sabbatical started today, so this is the first day. I have not exactly taken a lot of time to think this through. I'm going to take a couple of days, couple of weeks to really finish all the work that I've done in the past 19 years, but also to take a step back and to some room in my head, because you are not a part of the daily work life anymore. And then I hope that in the next couple of months I get some ideas and some clarity around what am I going to do with the rest of my life. I have no idea. So no. But if people would like to, ask a question or reach out, I will still be on LinkedIn.
Yay!
Still be on Twitter. So you can find me there and reach out, and I'll be sure to connect. Yeah.
So you heard it, y'all. To the Unleashing the Future of Work community, if you want to find Anita, please follow her, connect with her on LinkedIn, or reach out to her on Twitter, where she's incredibly active. And as well, if you visit her LinkedIn, you'll check out that she also has an amazing website where she has a bit of details on what she speaks on and her history as well. So definitely reach out to Anita for all of your future of work keynoting needs. With that said, thank you so much, Anita, for being part of this episode of Unleashing the Future of Work. The community loves you. They were so enthralled with some of the mentions that you shared around the importance of building networks internally and externally, and mentorship as well. I think those are some things that really, really are relevant in today's day and age. And we actually have one more question from Saad, who's the technology project manager. He's asking, how do we suggest people determining, or how do you suggest we determine of an organization that meets our criteria for work life? What do you think about this, Anita? How do we go about determining this?
Does he mean if they or to join a company that is?
Yeah. So how do you determine if an organization meets your correct criteria for work
Oh,
life?
okay, got it. I would say ask a lot of questions, and also find some people who work for that company on LinkedIn or on Twitter, and just see what they post, what they have to say, and read their comments, because that will tell you a lot. And once again, people on these networks are typically very friendly and very collaborative. So it doesn't hurt to reach out to them and ask them a question.
Yeah. And to Saad, to Anita's point, I would suggest, before you start interviewing and before your first 90 days with a company, try to interview 2 to 3 people who may work in the same role in the same division of the same company that you want to work with, and ask them about the culture. Truly ask them about the culture and write down everything they say, from what work feels like to how often are deadlines prioritized, because that will give you a full perspective on what life is going to be like within that organization, and if it meets your work life criteria. And I think lastly, I think prioritizing what at this point in your life, as Anita's mentioned, what are you prioritizing the most? Do you want to start a family soon? Do you want to travel a lot? Because there might be organizations that fit that lifestyle, that you really want to embody. So think about that. What are you prioritizing at this point in your life? That was a great question, Scott, and I'm sure a lot of members appreciate that. Oh, Florencia. Okay, Anita, people do not want you to leave yet. They have more questions for us. So how do you recommend we cultivate the relationships with people in our network without just reaching out to them with a need for help? Ooh, Anita, what are your thoughts on this?
I think that, like I mentioned before, if you want to cultivate relationships, especially in this day and age, it's not always a face-to-face conversation, right? Very often it's virtual. And so give them something that they need. Be interesting on Twitter or LinkedIn. Don't overshare, but share some good information that people are interested in. And in that way, you can build your online profile. And if you do that, people will come back to you. But I always like the idea of giving back, or giving something to get something. And you know that when you start to share information with people, or something else about yourself, some people share music, others share movies. Tim has a podcast that he shares, but he also shares a lot of other stuff about mentoring and networks. So make sure that you give something back. I think that is really important.
Anita, I love that so much. And Florencia, my same tidbits would be similar to Anita. Try to add value to every relationship that you want to start. One of the things that when I first met Anita, she was like, I would love to have you on a podcast. And I love being on podcasts. And that's how we actually ended up building a relationship over time. And I think, Florencia, if you think about whoever you're trying to reach out to and build a relationship, how can you add value from the start of the relationship, in a sense of what are opportunities for you all to collaborate, right? Whether it be you starting a podcast, you featuring them on a blog post, or you connecting them to their next big opportunity. These are all ways to kickstart a relationship with a warm introduction, versus just reaching out and saying, I need help me now. because what you will find is that people often don't have time to give unless they realize how you want to support or collaborate with them, right? And that there's mutual
Yeah.
interest involved. So definitely think along those lines, Florencia. And with that said, we're going to cap the questions there. If you loved this episode of Unleashing the Future of Work, please make sure you share this video. And also tag me in all of your comments on LinkedIn. I'm super active on there. Show some love to I and Anita and I. And make sure you connect with Anita on her LinkedIn and Twitter. She is amazing, one of my wonderful friends. And I can't wait to see what you do next, Anita. Thank you so much for
Thank
being on
you.
the episode of Unleashing the Future of Work. Awesome. Awesome. All right. And we're out. Thank you all so much. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.